How do you do, fellow kids? Now I know everyone has been enjoying Spawntember, you want to watch the animated show, you want to play the video games, you want to read the comics, and I'm happy to have been such a positive influence in your life. But it's also back to school season, and you're gonna have to know your Spawn material if you want to impress the cool kids. Now I know your parents probably don't want you watching the animated show because it's too violent, and your dad is overprotective of his first print Spawn #1 that you can get on eBay for like $30. And the movie, well, the movie just stinks. But that's okay, because luckily, there's something out there for you, my miniature little Hellspawn. The Adventures of Spawn was a limited spin-off series of Image's edgy poster boy, brought to you by writer John Goff, artist Kari Randolph, with colors by Joe Ferstel, and Jason Gonzalez. As the title reflects, The Adventures of Spawn aim to be a more kid-friendly take on the hellish anti-hero, akin to a Saturday morning cartoon. It only lasted 2 issues, never actually becoming a comic book run, but more of a proof of concept, to see if this character that's rooted in violence can work through a lighthearted lens. Because it was such a short run, The Adventures of Spawn is a non-stop action romp that doesn't waste any time, unlike its mainline counterpart. Look, I love the Spawn comics, for better or worse, but there's no denying that multiple plot threads get exhaustingly drawn out for issues upon issues, making it really hard to cling on to these books, Todd. I'm a simple man. Sometimes all I need is the good guys punching the bad guys, and I'm chipper than a squirrel with nuts. And that's exactly what the team went for. I've talked to some people who feel the story of Spawn should stick to its dark, horror-centric roots, which is a valid point of view. I've also talked to a large number of people, both regular readers and casual readers, who are very interested in this new take on the character, and are ready for something a little more action-packed that doesn't take itself quite so seriously. A comic doesn't need to change your life. Sometimes all it has to do is provide the reader with a healthy dose of butt-kickery. I ask you, what's wrong with that? The Adventures of Spawn was released as an online comic book, and because of that, it had an unusual release format, where readers would get 2 to 4 pages on a weekly basis. And this influenced the way John Goff wrote this book, with each release feeling like its own self-contained story, with a beginning, middle, and end. He made every panel count, instead of having one of these exhausting things. There's always something happening here, keeping the reader interested. Spawn having a fight with Cygor in the middle of the zoo, Omega Spawn, we'll get to him later, fighting off a horde of demons while rebooting computer systems. There's very little downtime in this story, and it's really refreshing after watching Spawn mope around for like 80 issues in the mainline. Having this more family-friendly take on Spawn meant ditching the grimy horror vibes of the OG books. So, no hell imagery, no gross body horror, no standing outside your ex-wife's window in the cold rain while your best friend screws her. Al Simmons is a family man now. But before we get into how characters' backstories were reworked, let's talk about the visual overhaul. Characters have a cleaner, angular look to them, our heroes being all barrel-chested with strong jaws and striking heroic poses. It's very reminiscent of Bruce Timm's art style, and they transfer seamlessly into action figures. While technically still being demons, the monsters here don't really give off a satanic vibe. They look more like mischievous little goblins, or those aliens from Space Jam. Backgrounds are often just a simple, solid color, putting more emphasis on the bombastic action between our heroes and villains. I love the gruesome, detailed art of Todd McFarlane and Greg Capullo, but this simpler, more streamlined style is straight up eye candy. They remind me of those Disney Infinity figures, which are also rad as hell. I can easily picture this style working in animation. It would just be Justice League Unlimited. So, how are we going to make this brutal, violent anti-hero with themes of hell and eternal anguish baked into him fun for the whole family? Al Simmons was burned to death and struck a deal with the devil. Well, one of the devils, to be a general for the forces of hell in Armageddon. Easy. Al Simmons is now a decorated soldier, a proud American hero, not a cold-hearted assassin doing shady work for the CIA. He's also not dead, so you don't get any of that gross, pus-spewing zombie face being held together by a dingy shoelace. It's now held together by sharp cheekbones and a perfect jawline, which means he's happily married to Wanda, and they both have cute baby girl Cyan. No deal with Malboja, no Hellspawn, no damnation. Instead, Al Simmons discovers a relic while on the mission Project Codename. Ah yes, Project Codename, my favorite project name after Prototype Beta. In this relic lies a magical suit, the K7 Letha Supersuit. Al Simmons is enveloped by the suit and becomes Spawn X. Why Spawn X now? Well, because anything with an X at the end of it, it's automatically cooler. And he uses these newfound powers to be a superhero, and he's gonna have some help along the way.
Al Simmons, the world's most powerful assassin, is killed by his own men. He finds himself face to face with Malboja, the ruler of the 8th Circle of Hell, who presents him with the ultimate choice. Al Simmons must now determine his own fate. Al Simmons, choose your destiny. Become my minion, and you will lead the armies of perdition. In exchange, I will give you superhuman powers, and you will be allowed to see your one true love, your wife, the stunning and becalling Wanda. Or choose an eternal supply of tasty Spawnco necro wafers. But be mindful, you will forfeit the chance to ever see Wanda again. That's no choice at all. I choose sweet, crunchy, and delicious necro wafers. They're yummy. Al Simmons, your decision has been swift. Once you choose, your fate is sealed forever. Are you certain you have chosen wisely? Sure, I'm sure. Who can resist Spawnco necro wafers? Not me.
Necro, authentic candy wafers. Crunchy and sweet, necro wafers are a hell of a treat. Spawn and his friends hang out in Satellite X. Again, just cooler. And totally not a ripoff of the Watchtower. These adventures start with Spawn already having allies from different walks of life, like fan favorite Redeemer. He's a fan favorite, right? I mean, he looks cool. There's no uneasy alliance here with Redeemer, like there has been in the mainline books. These two are buddies from the get-go. Because there is no heaven versus hell war going on, they're not forced to oppose each other. Well, there kind of is a heaven versus hell thing going on, but it's more of a generic light forces versus dark forces. Even in the main Spawn books, the forces of heaven aren't exactly the good guys. They're more like these big wigs that want to maintain the upper hand in Armageddon. They don't exactly have humanity's best interest in mind. If gathering more souls means strengthening their army, so be it. In the adventures of Spawn, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. Simple as that. And I like that Redeemer is here from the beginning. Because for being such a standout character in the main comics, he's not in them very much. And his origin kinda sucks. All the different characters that took the mantle of Redeemer, none of them worked all that well. The thing is, he looks cool. He's a good guy, he's got wings. Omega Spawn, cause everyone needs a robot sidekick. In the main books, Omega Spawn is a super evil version of Spawn that goes full on Satan mode. But again, to reiterate, it's not cool to put this on a lunchbox. But here, Omega Spawn is a robot from the future powered by another relic, and he's traveled back in time to help out Spawn in his adventures. He also has the Omega Squadron, which are a bunch of helpers he made in his own image, and totally not a ripoff of the Iron Legion. Now let's go through some of the foes. Tiffany. I'll be honest, I never found this character to be particularly interesting, and I feel pretty much the same way about her here. In the main books, she has this devotion to Heaven's army, but here she actually betrays the light forces and crosses over to the bad guys. And there's some romantic history between her and Redeemer. So, we got drama, boys and girls. Overt Kill. He remains largely the same here, still being a cybernetically enhanced bully, but here, he was Al Simmons' old partner before turning to a life of villainy. He received his first upgrade during a government project titled Codename. Wait, is this the same thing as Project Codename? Or is this a whole other thing just called Codename? Cygor, he's a little different here. If you've been keeping up with Spawntember, you'll know that Cygor was the result of an experiment combining man and ape. Here, he was just a regular old gorilla until Project Cygor. Ah, see, now you're doing it right. And this gorilla was cybernetically enhanced, giving him heightened intelligence and abilities like being able to mind control other monkeys. And he's totally not a ripoff of Gorilla Grodd. All these cronies are led by Mammon, who is a trickster demon seeking the 13 Relics of Ruin. The original Mammon has kind of a complex background, again with strong ties to both heaven and hell, He was once a warrior from heaven who had a fall from grace and became one of Hell's top-ranking lords. He has strong powers of manipulation, and he orchestrated all of the events that led up to Al Simmons' transformation into Spawn and beyond. But here, he's just a bad guy, and he wants to collect the 13 Relics of Ruin so he can rule the world with his dark force. And I imagine that these relics would have been the MacGuffins if the Adventures of Spawn was ever turned into a cartoon. This is what the Adventures of Spawn feels like. It's a super short story that's mainly just set up for these characters in a Quake high-octane battle over one of these relics, to kind of just pitch you what this show would be like. Even once the story is wrapped up, the comic continues to give you different versions of Spawn characters in the form of these mini-bios. A little more backstory on the relics, a different version of Tremor, where instead of being the result of an experiment that turns him into a demon-like monster, he's a planet-hopping space alien bounty hunter. But does Spawn work as a kid-friendly superhero? A lot of fans might say that part of the appeal of the character is that edginess, and the team here was well aware of that.
There are always going to be the kind of fans that like the darker Spawn for obvious reasons. And you know what? I like that darker Spawn for those same reasons. But the thing to consider is, what happened with the Adventures of Spawn is no different than what other companies have done with numerous other characters from their universe.
I agree with them. We see different versions of iconic comic book characters all the time, whether it be through cartoons, Lego video games, movies. I think that's sort of the magic of modern superhero media, that there's a version out there for everyone. And with this Spawn animated cartoon that's supposed to be more kid-friendly, stuck in limbo, I think the Adventures of Spawn is the perfect blueprint to finally bring this show to life. Happy Spawntember, everyone! I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of a different version of Spawn that not a lot of people might know about. I for one do hope we get a lighthearted iteration of Spawn. I think everyone deserves a bit of Spawn in their life. Once again, thank you to everyone that has been keeping the Spawntember hype going with artwork, which you'll be seeing some of here, and just overall sharing your love for the character. I also want to recommend a very long-awaited video, at least for me, and that's Matt Draper's video on how Spawn changed comic books. Even though it sucks? Alright, personal opinions on Spawn aside, it's an awesome video and one of my personal favorites. No bias, of course. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.